This episode of the LCTV News is brought to you by North Shore Community College. If you have the will to attend college, we have the way for you to earn your degree.
This is LCTV News, and I'm Danny Vittori. In the news, scholarships are being offered, Martin Luther King Day was celebrated, and new officers were welcomed. The CEO of Lynn Community Health Center joined us on the Lowdown to discuss their new pharmacy. Here's the news for Friday, January 20th, 2023. An increase in catalytic converter thefts have been reported to the police in East Lynn. On Wednesday, the 11th, the police received 10 calls. Thursday, the 12th, another one was taken. Smaller cars and Hondas have been bigger targets, given that they are easier to put on a jack and lift. In the past, thieves have been committed by a small group of people, and if they were experienced, they can do so quickly, making them difficult to catch. Thefts have been occurring late in the night and early in the morning. If residents see any suspicious behavior or activity, they are encouraged to contact the police. The Lynn Continuum of Care, LCHC, has begun accepting applications for their annual scholarship program, which awards $1,000 in aid to the cost of college. The goal of LCHC is to end homelessness. They had previously given out two $500 scholarships, but this year they are awarding $1,000 one to a Lynn student who will be continuing their education after high school. High school seniors who are homeless or at risk of homelessness are eligible for the scholarship. Those who share space with another due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or living in a space not ordinarily used for sleeping purposes qualifies as homeless. Racial Justice Coalition protesters were present at the 37th annual MLK Breakfast, hosted by the Knights of Columbus for the Community Minority Cultural Center. The city recently announced a plan to include Elliott Community Health in the plan to expand mental health services. Mayor Nicholson said a few words, including discussing the Lynn Unarmed Emergency Response Team, before protesters stood and Reverend Bernadette Hickman Maynard, co-chair of the coalition, took the podium. The coalition is composed of 8 organizations and was created back in 2020. According to an op-ed written to Mayor Nicholson and released by the coalition, quote, "Our community is acutely aware that Elliott has never centered cultural competency and resisted systematic racism in their work. We are not confident that layering cultural training or the hiring of a few new staff members on top of an organization with a long history of working within a sedimented structure of racism can address our community's needs," end quote. The coalition also stated their dissatisfaction in not being involved during the process. Quote, "We have been so sidelined that our knowledge of the proposal's contents are limited to a single PowerPoint presentation. We are saddened that the process so far has included us as providing the politically expedient image of community partnership, but not the actual collaboration that is necessary for our city to make this crucial stride forward," end quote. Former Lynn resident Brian Walsh was charged with the murder of his wife, Ann Walsh, and improper transport of a body on Tuesday the 17th. Mother of 3, Ann Walsh was last seen on New Year's Day before being reported 3 days later on the 4th. Brian Walsh was already being held on the charge of misleading an investigation, and his bail was set at $500,000. He was seen on camera buying hundreds of dollars worth of cleaning supplies on January 2nd. Police also found several items scattered throughout dumpsters, including clothing his wife had been seen wearing. Brian Walsh was arraigned in Quincy District Court on the 18th, where he entered a plea of not guilty. He is now being held without bail pending an indictment. The Lynn Police Department welcomed 8 new officers to the force on the 17th. They graduated with the first recruit officer course from the Lynn Police Academy. The course takes 21 weeks to complete, and successful completion is required for all new full-time police officers, according to Massachusetts state law. The course focuses on problem-solving, procedural justice, ethical decision-making, and fair and impartial policing. Physical requirements range from weights to endurance to flexibility. Courses are held in a variety of locations across the state and run from Mondays through Fridays. Since the first cannabis dispensary, Apotheca, opened in Lynn in 2019, the city has collected $1.7 million in revenue. In Massachusetts, the Department of Revenue gives back 3% of gross cannabis sales to the town or city where it is sold. The city has collected $863,000 in taxes since 2019. The collected money can only be used to fight or alleviate negative effects from cannabis on the municipality. Currently, Lynn is looking to invest the money in new park spaces and to fix roadways which are getting more use due to the addition of a dispensary. The city can also charge an additional 3% tax, according to the Host Community Agreements, or HCA. Under a law amended by former Governor Charlie Baker, the state's Cannabis Control Commission can now closely inspect how that HCA money is used. Therefore, Lynn is looking to consolidate their plans for the money as soon as possible. On deck, the sports update. Before the classical English basketball game, broadcaster John Hoffman was given a plaque to commemorate his 40 years of announcing high school sports. Hoffman referenced his father, saying his love of broadcasting came from him. The plaque itself included a picture of Hoffman in his booth, which is now named Hoffman's Perch. Lynn Classical girls are 12-0 on the season. They pulled off a 44-42 win over city rival Lynn English. The Bulldogs were up 40-34 with 3 minutes remaining, but the Rams rallied to keep their undefeated season alive. They then beat Chelsea 48-17. Their boys team is 5-8 after defeating the Swampscott Big Blue 69-62. Swampscott beat them earlier in the season, but this time it was the Rams who came out on top. The Rams then lost on the road versus Somerville 63-55 before beating Chelsea 46-45. The Spartans girls basketball team downed Bishop Fenwick 71-45 as the Spartans outscored them by 20 points in the third quarter. They then won the Martha's Vineyard tournament this past weekend, including beating Scituate 9-0 in the championship game. They remain undefeated at 11-0, with Jenna Chaplin getting her 200th point as a Spartan, while their boys basketball team also won 58-39 against Randolph and 64-57 to Burke, improving their record to 6-2. The Spartan girls basketball team downed Bishop Fenwick 71-45 as the Spartans outscored them by 20 points in the third quarter. Their girls hockey team then won the Martha's Vineyard tournament this past weekend, including beating Scituate 9-0 in the championship game. They remain undefeated at 11-0, with Jenna Chaplin getting her 200th point as a Spartan, while their boys basketball team also won 58-39 against Randolph and 64-57 to Burke, improving their record to 6-2. St. Mary's boys hockey dropped to 9-1-2 after a 1-1 tie with Hingham on the 16th and a 2-0 loss to Winchester on the 18th. The Lynn English boys basketball moved to 12-0, preserving their undefeated season. They beat inner-city rival Lynn Classical 86-43 on the 14th, Chelsea 88-29 on the 17th, and Malden 72-38 on the 19th. Their girls basketball team sits at 8-4 after blowing out Chelsea 77-14. Jalen Novus Rivera led the Bulldogs with 14 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 steals. They got their second win in a row, downing Malden 65-26. The Lynn Jets hockey team was defeated by Everett 5-2. The Lynn Tech boys basketball team moved to 8-2 on the year with a 90-52 downing of the Minutemen. Jaden Welch had a double-double with 20 points and 11 rebounds. Kip Academy boys basketball took down the Salem Academy Navigators on the road 59-51. They have now extended their win streak to 3 in a row. Their girls team is struggling, losing to Mystic Valley 49-42. The Celtics have increased their streak to 7 in a row with a 130-118 win over the Charlotte Hornets. They now have 33 wins on the year. Previously, they had a 109-98 victory against the Brooklyn Nets and defeated the Charlotte Hornets 122-106 in the first of a 2-game series. Against the Nets, center Luke Cornett had 11 points and 5 rebounds and has played a vital role in the Celtics offense since being picked up in February of 2022. In the first of 2 games against the Hornets, Jason Tatum notched 33 points, while Malcolm Brogdon got 30. Marcus Smart once again played an instrumental role, securing 12 of the Celtics' 35 assists. In the second game, Tatum scored 51 points as MVP chants filled the stadium. He is currently averaging 31 points per game, his best since joining the league in 2017, and shooting 86.7% from the field. After suffering just their 5th loss of the season to the Seattle Kraken 3-0, the Bruins bounced back with 3 wins in a row. In a 4-3 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs, the second period proved to be the difference, as the Bruins scored 2 goals, while the Maple Leafs scored just 1. Toronto struck first, but a feed to Patrice Bergeron right in front of the net evened the score at 1-1. Boston was playing catch-up until halfway through the second period, when a goal by A.J. Greer gave them their first lead of the game, 3-2. Toronto would tie the game again in the third, but a one-timer by Matt Grzelcyk with just over a minute remaining secured the victory for Boston. It also marked David Krejci's 1,000th game with the Bruins. He began his career with them back in 2014 and has been a part of several playoff runs. In a 6-0 downing of the Philadelphia Flyers, David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha scored 2 goals apiece. On the road, the Bruins got their 35th win of the season, 4-1 against the New York Rangers. It marked goalie Linus Ullmark's 24th victory of the season and the 100th of his career. Both him and David Pastrnak have also been named 2023 All-Stars. On the Lowdown, we had the CEO of the Lynn Community Health Center to talk about their plans for the upcoming year. Here is the Lowdown. Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Danny Vittori, and today we have on the CEO of Lynn Community Health Center, Dr. Kiame Mahaniah. So thanks for coming on the show.
Honored to be here and glad to be here.
Great. So one of the things you came on to talk about was the new pharmacy that you're developing within the health center itself. So would you want to maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so in the second week of January, we'll have our soft opening with the official opening in the 3rd week. We'll be opening Lynn Community Health Center's own pharmacy. It'll be in our main building, available to anybody in Lynn, but really focused on our patients. So we're pretty excited. We've never had our own pharmacy, so this is a brand new venture for us, and we're very excited.
Because I don't know if I'd heard of it either before, a health center actually having their own connected pharmacy. And you were talking a little bit about a lot of the benefits that can come from having that connection. Did you want to?
Yeah, so it's not unusual for a health center to have a pharmacy. So for instance, if you went to East Boston, they have their own pharmacy in-house. If you went to Holyoke, they have their own pharmacy, or Lawrence. But yes, it has not been something we've done. It's not something really in the area that you would see. But I mean, obviously the great benefits are really that you tie what's happening for and with the patients in the health center more closely to the pharmacy. So as many of your audience may know, the pharmacy, the health center really specializes in providing care and services to people who have difficulty accessing the mainstream system or who can't access the mainstream system. So we have a lot of people who prefer to be served in language other than English. The vast majority of our patients are below the poverty line. And also we have a lot of people who have literacy issues. And obviously we have a lot of seriously ill patients, and they can have a really difficult time accessing care. So the idea is really that to connect the clinical pharmacy services really intimately with the team, so that for the patient, it won't look any different whether they're talking to the nurse, the medical assistant, the nurse practitioner, the pharmacist. They would all feel like it's part of one team, so that we can really tie, call it closing the loop, but we really if I just give you a medication, there's no real guarantee that you understand what it's for, that you're going to go get it, that someone's going to explain to you how to take it. So this is really guaranteeing that, particularly for our patients who would have a difficult time in a mainstream pharmacy, if you don't have a phone, if you don't have internet, if you don't speak English, if you don't read. So those are really the target population for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even the last time I got any kind of a prescription there's just pages and pages of directions and warnings and things that I'm like, I don't understand this. So I have obviously I know it's safe, but it can get so complicated.
Not only that, but you get this medication, you're excited about it, and then you read, you could die, you could lose a finger, you could have a stroke, and you're like, I'm not taking this, right? And so the idea is to be able to address those questions, those concerns right away. And then there's a person you can call and say, I started this medication 3 days ago, I'm feeling this, is it related? So we're really hoping that we can bridge that part. So because I forget what the numbers are, but a sizable percentage of prescriptions that are written for in the US are never filled.
Really?
Yes. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it was something like only 3/4 of medications that are prescriptions that are actually written, the patient actually fills them and goes to get them at the pharmacy. And obviously, if you have a seizure disorder or you have depression or you have diabetes, like that's a big deal if you're not taking your medication the way you're supposed to.
Definitely. And you were mentioning too, one of the other reasons you were able to do this is you're transitioning, or will be in April, I think you said, to a different kind of payment. Instead of the fee-for-service, it's value-based payment. So.
Yes, so that can get complicated, but essentially the easy way to think of it is that until now, for the last, I'd say, 70 years, since World War II, essentially we've been paid fee-for-service, means if you come for one visit, we get a certain amount of money. If you come for 2 visits, we get double. If you come for 3 visits, we get triple. And that's just the way we got paid. And obviously there's lots of things that we do that help patients, but that you can't bill for. So we help people sign up for insurance. We hook people up with the food bank. We help people with their housing. We help with transportation. And all those things actually, there's no system to be reimbursed for it. So most places don't offer those services. But now in a value-based payment, what will happen is Medicaid or Mass Health will give us a certain amount of money every month dependent on the number of patients that we have. And to a large degree, we do what we think is right for the patient. So it doesn't matter to us if you come 10 times or 1 time, like it will be, right? And so that kind of change makes us think, oh, so now we can invest in something like a pharmacy and having pharmacists, because we really know how important the therapy is to patients. But yes, without fee-for-service, it's a little bit more difficult to imagine doing something like that. And we're very excited because, like I mentioned before, when you deal with patients who have all kinds of quote-unquote non-medical needs, the fee-for-service system is difficult to navigate. And my big hope, my big desire, ever since I went to medical school, was really to work in a system where we have this value-based payment, where we get money essentially paid up front, and then we have some amount of independence to do what's right for patients.
Definitely. And that, you said, helps the patients too, because they can get whatever individual help they need without having to worry as much about, like, oh, what is this going to cost? How do I access this? It really helps them as well.
Yes, and so one of the nice things is also that really at the base of it, what value-based payment allows you to do is that if a person needs more support and more help, you can actually do it. Like right now, as you know, when you go see your clinician, whether you have a hangnail or you have a really serious medical problem, you get the same 12 minutes or whatever it is, right? And under value-based payment, what you can do is be like, oh, Danny, she has an easy problem. We'll give her 5 minutes. But, oh, this person, well, it looks like they have a really complicated thing. Let's give them half an hour or 40 minutes. Or, oh, they don't need just the doctor. They need the doctor and the social worker and the case coordinator and, right? So you can really, and so that allows you to be much more patient sensitive. And so it'll take time. It won't happen like magic on April 1st. Yeah. But nevertheless, you're quite correct that patients will really feel the difference in terms of having all their needs met. And there's no longer this need to come for a visit, right? Like you don't have to feel guilty that somehow your doctor is doing all this work or your nurse practitioner is doing all this work and they're not getting paid. Now, it doesn't matter whether you come, whether it's on the phone, whether it's online. We'll be able to provide all those services, and because of the way we're paid, it works out.
Yeah, which said it does. It sounds like a fantastic system, something to transition into that you're clearly very knowledgeable about. And I guess one other quick thing that I'll go back to is you were talking about the 340B drug pricing program, which again is another place you said where it can sometimes help you with cost, also with patient care. Would you be able to do a quick summary of that?
So I'll try to make it so it's interesting for your audience. So essentially, the 340B program is specifically made for institutions that serve people who are poor. So it's specifically made for institutions like community health centers. Mm-hmm. And what it allows us to do is that it allows us to buy medications in bulk at the lowest price that's possible in the U.S., to sell it to insurance companies when they're paying for patients, and to use the difference and to keep essentially the profit of that, the difference between what we pay and what we sell it for. And the reason that's so important is that most of the services that we provide at health centers in general, are money losers, right? Like we have, like I mentioned before, we do a ton of work in all kinds of different areas. And most of the work that we do is not reimbursed and would be losing money if not for the 340B program. And one of the other things that's been changing is that the federal government has been moving us towards the idea that, well, if you really want to keep that 340B program, you have to have your own pharmacy. They're making it less and less appealing. So we still have a deal with CVS and Walgreens to run our 340B program. But the federal government is making it less and less attractive that way. And they really want you essentially to have your own pharmacy that you are running, partially so that they can be sure that the 340B program is going towards the people and institutions that it was intended to. So yeah, that's another reason why we're also opening our own pharmacy, is to increase the chances that we'll still be able to get that money, which allows us to fund things like the mobile food bank that we do, or the way we help enroll patients with insurance. That so you don't have to be a patient of the health center to get our help to enroll. So yeah, so the 340B program is really a lifesaver for us as an institution, and the pharmacy, in addition to being something that's going to be wonderful for patients, also allows us to better survive financially.
So it's all interconnected, patient care, the way that it all works.
Yes, it's all interconnected. Yeah, in general in the world, we like to think of things as completely separate. But yeah, everything is interconnected. And, like one of my big things is people often ask me, what do your patients truly need? And my answer is, wow, they really need good jobs. They need great transportation. They need great community. That's what health is also that, right? Health is also having good sidewalks and great parks and supermarkets you can buy fresh food at, right? It's not all just quality of the medical care you get in an office. So the pharmacy really does fit within that overall picture.
No, I think it definitely does, and I want to thank you again for coming on to talk about it, to tell people about it, and really help explain it.
Thanks for inviting me. I know that sometimes these specialized topics can get pretty dry, but I do think it will be a game changer for the 43,000 patients in Lynn that we serve.
Definitely, and you make it very interesting and easy to understand, which I think is very helpful.
Good, but thanks again for inviting me. It was great being here.
Of course, thank you so much again. And once again, I'm Danny Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we will see you next week with more guests. Now, the community calendar. Thursday, January 25th, there will be a Pine Hill Little League fundraiser at Tony's Pub, happening from 5 to 9 at Tony's, 196 Franklin Street. It is cash only, and 20% of the proceeds will go back to Pine Hill. Additionally, there will be a 50-50 raffle, as well as gear for purchase. On the 29th is the 47th annual Great Stew Chase, 15K, beginning at 10 a.m. at the Knights of Columbus. The Wyoma Lions Club makes hot stew for the runners, which is how the race got its name. For the first time this year, the Lions will be sponsoring the event, with donations being accepted from the Massachusetts Lions Eye Research Fund. The fund helps people with many different eye diseases. Later on the 29th is a Get to Know a Vet celebration occurring at Kings Beach Tower from 2 to 6 p.m. There will be a Q&A session where veterans can share their stories and give younger members of the military community a look into that life. There will also be music, food, and raffles. To learn more about the events mentioned and all events happening in the city, go to lyntv.org and click on the community calendar. That is all the news for this week. Follow us on social media at Lynn Community Television to stay informed about what is happening around Lynn. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page, Lynn Community Television, to watch the videos we create for events and shows. And visit lyntv.org for press releases, videos, and community events. I'm Danny Vittori, this is LCTV News, and we will see you next week.